Hi, friends. You're tuned in to Legal Means Business, a podcast by Leeway. We're joined by some amazing guests who help us identify how to take your legal function and career to the next level. I'm your host, Steph Smith, and we're talking all things legal ops and legal tech, as well as other critical skills needed to help you thrive in the evolving in-house arena. Don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube or listen on the go through Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy the conversation, please do hit subscribe and let us know what you think on social.
The days of just being good, technically, with the so-called hard skills, are no longer sufficient in my opinion. You also have to be a great leader, and you also need these days to be amazing at soft skills. Those soft skills are not usually taught in law schools, and boy, do we learn about IP and corporate law and employment and patent and you name it. But how you're going to need to act, we're just not taught, leadership and how to properly manage in the 21st centuries.
Wow, what a great conversation I've just had with Pierre. Pierre is someone who's redefining legal from a leadership perspective, and he's reinventing the wheel in terms of how legal teams are led. In this conversation, you'll hear about why soft skills are important for in-house lawyers, how you can develop these skills, and how to identify and communicate your leadership style with your team. The conversation was full of useful nuggets, so without further ado, let's dive in. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Pierre. It's nice to have you on the podcast.
Always happy to be here, Stephanie. Always happy to be here.
And I know we've been in touch for quite some time since I joined Leeway. So we're pleased to have you on one of the first podcasts that we're launching.
Glad to be here.
So I know you've had quite a varied and exciting career. For those listeners who don't know anything about you or don't know much about you, could you tell us a bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm a French qualified lawyer. I'm registered with the Paris bar. That sounds all very exciting. But my career has been mainly with American company. I started off my career working at Disney. I actually did all sorts of things at Disney, including working, for the theme park, selling tickets at the very beginning of my career, and doing all sorts of other things. But basically, I stayed at Disney for about 7 to 8 years. I then had the chance to jump on the internet train, but internet at its very beginnings, basically when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So that's in 1999, and I was, general counsel for France, and eventually, worked my way up. I stayed at Yahoo for over 15 years, and I ended up deputy general counsel for Yahoo, but as well in charge of the EMEA region. But as well, I was also in charge of the people issues for the legal department globally, because I have a keen interest. And I think that's that interest in me that you guys have with this podcast. But I was really interested in people issue, in leadership issues. So this is how I ended up, trying to lead that initiatives for lawyers globally at Yahoo for a while. I then left with my direct report team, who also left Yahoo. We all left on or about the same time. We set up an alliance of lawyers, outside counsels in the 5 major European markets: Germany, UK, Spain, Italy, and of course France. And we provided service to companies, mainly digital companies. Though we were outside counsel, we tried to work and act as if we were in-house lawyers. And actually, one of my clients hired me, Ledger, which Ledger is now a French unicorn. So we're licorn. I don't know if you say licorn or unicorn. What's the proper term? But anyway, Ledger, which is a company in the blockchain space, asked me to set up their legal team, which I did for a couple of years. And now, for the past few years, I've been really focusing on something that is absolutely fascinating to me and that I find essential, which is leadership. And therefore, now I'm an executive mentor to general counsels as well as legal teams, and I help them work on their, personal branding, their leadership, all those soft skills that we don't necessarily have a chance to study at law school, but that are so key in today's world.
Yeah, definitely. And it's obviously, I can hear it when you speak, it's obviously a passion of yours. But why is it an important topic for in-house lawyers?
Um, because I think that the days of just being good, technically, with the so-called hard skills, are
Hmm.
no longer sufficient in my opinion, in order to be a well-rounded legal executive. You have to be obviously an amazing at your technical skills, but you also have to be a great leader, and you also need these days to be amazing at soft skills. And as I've very briefly mentioned just before, those soft skills are not usually taught in law schools. And,
Hmm.
uh, you know, boy, do we learn about IP and corporate law and employment and patent and you name it. But how you're going to need to act when you lead other lawyers, whether it's, in-house or in a practice in a law firm, that we really very rarely, at least in France, I don't know if it's the case in the US, but I think it's pretty similar. At least that's what I've heard, and we're just not taught leadership and how to properly manage in the 21st centuries. And really, leaders need to learn, how to lead in the 21st century. Leaders of legal team, they need to let their team know, what is their vision, what is what I call their picture of success,
Hmm.
what is it they're there for, where are they going, what are they trying to solve, what are they trying to achieve, and how long will that take, when will the team get there, what will be the pluses of climbing this mountain altogether, what will be the minuses or the potential challenges, by when will we get there. And all of that, a leader needs to be able to craft his vision. And the key thing in the 21st century is it's that it's no longer a top-down approach as we've seen before. It used to be that the orders, the direction, the actions were coming from the top and people were just executing. But in the 21st century, what we've seen, and that's probably due to the millennials and who crave for autonomy, what we've seen in the 21st century leadership, that it's much better to craft this vision, as I've just mentioned, but actually let your team do the how, and find out how they're going to help you achieve that picture of success, what concrete actions they suggest to implement in order to get there. And I think all these things were just not taught them. It's something you have to be kind of like shown the way on how to do it. And
Hmm.
that's what I try to help other leaders do these days.
Yeah, cool. And what's the experience been for you in terms of your leadership journey? Where did you learn these skills and how did it come about?
Well, my personal journey is in 2006. I was only in charge of Southern Europe. So, a couple lawyers in Spain, in Italy, and a handful of lawyers in France. And my boss at the time asked me whether I wanted to take the whole of Europe, Europe, Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Africa. So it's a huge region.
Hmm.
And of course, I said yes, because I was very much interested in such a challenge. But he also said, would you like to have an executive mentor work with you? Because it's a big step for you, going from, managing 3 or 5 persons to managing 50 to 60. And I said, of course. So I
Definitely.
met several executive mentors, and eventually I met someone absolutely fabulous. Her name is Sue Moore. And she worked by my side for all these years, and really, guided me and showed me the way, and
Hmm.
helped me to do all those things I'm talking about now. And actually, fairly recently, she retired, and after many years of advising many other mentees like me. And she knows how much I was keen to try to do something like she did. And she said, why don't you follow my methodology. I'm giving you everything and be my legacy. And I love that. And I'm
Hmm.
trying to hold up to our standards, because it has really
Yes.
helped me succeed at Yahoo. And I think, having a mentor, whomever that person be, as long as you find someone with that person to, that you click with,
Hmm.
can really help leaders to grow. So that's how I
Yeah,
started knowing about mentoring.
for sure. And you said there, yeah, you need to find the person that you click with, and that you did speak with a few mentors before as well. Is it kind of like a speed dating scenario, or how do you find the right mentor?
No, it's well, it's it's not like a speed dating, but it's true that usually and I see it myself now, myself being in the executive mentor shoes, usually what talent and development teams do is they offer potential mentees different profiles, and it's absolutely crucial. It's absolutely key that whenever someone is given the possibility to do executive mentoring, that we give the person the ability to meet several people, and then hopefully in the you shouldn't meet like 10, but I think 2 or 3 is a good balance. The
Yeah.
person you click with, I mean, when you meet someone at a dinner party and you don't know anyone at that dinner party, there are some people you will immediately click with. It's almost animal like. You don't know, it's just like there's something you click with that person, and some
Something in
others,
the air.
yeah, you don't care as much, or it's just yeah, it's just not as interesting. And and that's the same with executive mentoring. You need to go with the person you click. And in my case, there was not one single question in my mind when I met Sue that I wanted to work with her, and that's what happened. And now it's really interesting because I'm now in the shoes she was in back then. And I often happen to be, in competition with other mentors, which is absolutely normal. And it's always very satisfying when the mentees pick you because they clicked with you. And I think it's great.
Yeah. When you're looking for a mentor, speak with a few different people before you commit. Choosing someone you click with can make all the difference and help you get the most from that relationship. Up next, Pierre shares the leadership style that many legal leaders are currently using and the challenges associated with this. And so if we take it back to the kind of leadership approach, what does a typical leadership approach look like for in-house lawyers or in-house professionals at the moment? And what's maybe not perfect about that approach?
So, as I said previously in the past, the idea for leadership was you had to prove you were actually, the smartest person in the room, right? And like show to other colleagues, people you were going to manage, especially lawyers, that you were smarter than them. And then it used to be that they would only respect you if you were more technically savvy than they are, from a legal standpoint, and that's all that mattered. And really, this does not go, in my opinion, at the core of what a great leader must be. I mean, if I take back my Yahoo example, I had in my direct reports people that I definitely consider far more clever than I am, and far more smarter than I am, and I loved it. And whenever when I built a team at Ledger, I again hired more smarter people than I am because they were experts in their domain. I even got a fairly young attorney who has a PhD in employment law. But I thought, he's brilliant. Let's have him on the team. And actually, for the record, he's now the VP people of Yahoo. So actually, he had an really amazing career and growth because he's now went to the dark side, the side of the business. He's now, on charge of HR issues. But he's reproduced exactly the same thing. He's not an expert in all things HR, and yet he's recruited again smarter persons, various field in talent acquisition, in learning and development, than he is. Because again, the role of a leader is not to be necessarily smarter than the person you manage. The role of the leader is, to show the way, to remove obstacles, to craft that picture of success, to, engage the team in a passionate project, and that's what a leader should do. And obviously, if you do it right, actually the team in the end will believe that whatever it is they did it on their own, right? They will say, they will barely actually acknowledge or know that the leader was there. And when you achieve this, you have truly created a self-managing team. Stephanie, I'll give you a very quick analogy. A great leader is like an orchestra conductor. There's no music coming out of his baton. Clearly, there is none. And yet, without the conductor, it's very likely the orchestra is not going to play amazingly. Well, that's the kind of same thing with a leader of a legal team. There's not necessarily music, or you're not going to necessarily be deep in depth in
Yeah.
technical issues, but you are going to be the conductor of that team, and that's what really matters.
Yeah. Oh no, I love that analogy because yeah, everyone would be skilled in their own right, but especially when operating together, operating as a legal team, a legal department, and then adding the extra business layer on top of that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And being the leader in that scenario is just bringing it all together in musical harmony. That makes total
The
sense. Love
legal
it.
symphony, that's what I call it.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah. And you mentioned as well about great leaders hire people who are smarter than them. And I think that makes total sense, and not just in law, but in any industry, in any sector. I suppose is that difficult if you're maybe competition is quite common and quite high in law school, I suppose. So it's almost breaking down the barriers of no, I don't have to be the best, but I need to lead us all to be the
Yeah,
best.
it's some people. I mean, you really need to be, confident about yourself to get there, right? Because
Hmm.
once you start applying the, I'm going to hire smarter people than I am, and I'm actually going to be the conductor of the team with no music coming out of my baton.
Hmm.
Then in practice, what does that mean? In practice, that means that actually you're not going to work really on any files, and you're not
Hmm.
going to yourself be really involved in any issues. And then that could really quickly beg the next question. Well, if I'm not doing anything, with lots of quotes, then I'm
Hmm.
useless to the company. And then they're going to get rid of me because I can't show what I'm doing. And that's
Hmm.
really what, leaders are going to be afraid with that approach. But, let me reassure them. Once you're able to have a team, that you've grown, that is actually self-managing, which is really should be your goal, that leaves then more time to the leader to focus on what to do next. In other words,
Hmm.
Stephanie, the leader the leader's role is really to focus and to build tomorrow's business. What will be the challenges the company will face from a legal standpoint in years to come?
Hmm.
What will be the resources we need? What kind of legal tech do we need to invest into? What is the competition doing? Or how can I help the company in general, even though it's not strictly a legal issue, but how can I help the company because I've got some skills to progress? What projects can I take on to help the company move forward? And
Hmm.
if you do that, then what your team does is they manage today's business, right? So the leader's role is to focus on growing the business of tomorrow, while his team is to focus on managing today's.
Yeah.
And you can do this through many things, as I've explained. You can and should and will present a picture of success, a strategy, a vision for your team, where you're taking them, what will be the challenges, what will be great for the team when we'll get there, the types of people we know. You'll make sure you get the casting right in your team, all of those things.
Hmm.
But you will also remove obstacles for them. You will also be able to pay attention to things, such as, is my team properly compensated? And maybe I need to
Hmm.
work with the comp and benefit teams to make sure that this team, is set for the future when the competitors will go after them to get them.
Hmm.
Am I paying them properly? Are they on the proper bonus scheme? Do I have the
Yeah.
right people in the team? Are they doing the right thing in the team? How can I give them more exposure? All those stuff. And when you start adding all of those things I have mentioned, trust me, you're a busy man or a busy woman, and you're certainly a busy leader. And
Yes.
yet, you are not necessarily day in, day out doing strict legal jobs. And of course,
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned that, but of course, as the leader of the legal team, you're the point of escalation of any legal
Hmm.
issues. And that also takes some time when you're here to try to help and give guidance to your teams.
Yeah, totally. And I think the points you mentioned there in terms of making sure that your team are happy are super important. And especially considering the last year, last 2 years. Yeah,
Of
I think it's
course,
a bit of a hot topic.
definitely.
So if there's a lawyer or any in-house legal professional who's kind of stuck in the old way of their leadership style, how can they make this transition into the new way?
I have something with the 5 steps, and I
Yeah.
can talk to, explain briefly to you what that is now, if you want, Stephanie.
Yeah, that would be brilliant.
Wonderful.
It's easy to
So
remember when there's 5 solid points as
exactly, it's
well.
just easy. And 5 works well with me. It's 3s or 5, really.
Yeah.
But imagine now you have asked yourself those 5 questions. You are ready to move on. You got the new job. You have a new team, 20 lawyers, 30 lawyers, amazing, or even 3 lawyers, doesn't matter. The approach is the same. What do you do next? Well, there's another piece of advice I give to any leader. The first thing you need to do is to declaim your leadership style. And what is that? Well, it's explain from day one to your team what are the rules of working with you. And it's very simple. The questions you need to answer is, I will do blah blah. I will, give you lots of freedom to organize yourself. I will make sure you are paid properly. Second list of things you're going to give to your team. I won't tolerate any kind of aggressive behavior in the team. I won't check that you're doing what I've asked you to do, but please reassure me that you have. Third, do's. Please arrive on time at meeting. Please let me know if you're going to be out of the office for more than 5 hours. I don't know, whatever. Don'ts. Do not speak rudely to any staff members, whether it's the janitor or the CEO. Don't. And then the 5th one, how to communicate with me. Please use emails rather than Slack. Please copy me on all emails where the CEO is involved, whatever that might be. And when you give those 5 rules, very simple, I will, I won't, do's, don't, and how to communicate with me, then your team has really the handbook of how to work with you. And that's amazing, right? Because it's so easy for them. And then I also, because this is not a dictator, when you start going to a new team, I highly recommend you ask the team in return to tell you the do's and don'ts of working with them, and that they have a chance in front of their peers and to you to say, do not talk to me before my 5th coffee in the morning,
Yeah.
or, do add please in any request you send to me, because that's a pet peeve of me in the office, whatever that might be. And so, I think when you can do this sort of what I call clear contracting, then you have a lot of chances to, very quickly know how your team functions, and they also know how you function. And that solves so many problems, and it accelerates actually your onboarding.
Yeah, totally. That makes complete sense. And again, especially one with globalization and your team might be all over the world, but two, again, with the pandemic in the last few years. And it sounds like lots of companies probably will remain remote or partially remote. So I think laying those kind of guidelines in terms of what works best and what you expect from your team are probably more important now than they ever have been.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing. It's absolutely key when you write those do's and don'ts, and I will, I won't, that you write things that you actually do, not things that you think a great leader would do and that you're going to copy, but actually you're incapable of doing it.
Yeah,
Because
that's a great point.
otherwise, you land the problem because I usually tell my mentees, the people I work with, be careful. You have to sign with your blood on that one, right? Because, if you write things just because it sounds cool to say that, use, or I will participate every year for a week to a charity, your team never sees you participate to any charity because you're too busy or God knows what, then all you've created is deception and frustration with your team that, okay, you're saying things, but you actually don't mean it. So it's very key that you only write things that you truly believe you'll be able to deliver.
So if you're new in a leadership role, this 5-step framework will help you set expectations and articulate your leadership style to your new team. 1, the things I will do for you. 2, the things I won't do for you. 3, things to do when working with me. 4, the things not to do when working with me. And 5, how to communicate with me. If you do implement this with your team, we'd love to hear how you got on, so please do share. In fact, next up, Pierre will share exactly how to deliver this process with your team and some of the results he's experienced with his clients and mentees. Yeah, definitely. It's almost a relationship contract.
Almost, almost.
And I suppose in terms of, so you've laid these out, you know what you want to tell your team. How can you actually deliver that to them? Is it in a document? Do
Yeah,
you
I
verbalize
suggest
it?
you do a little presentation. It's a little PowerPoints, and they do the same for their working style, the do's and don'ts.
Hmm.
You do a little presentation, 5 slides, really. I will, bang, bang, bang. I won't, bang, 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 etc.
Hmm.
Do's, don'ts, and how to communicate with me. But more importantly, whenever you deliver that, every time you mention something like I will not tolerate any kind of aggressive behavior towards any team members,
Hmm.
then you follow up with an example, because this is a
Yeah.
principle and you need to turn it into practice. You need to turn it in a way that your team members are going to be able to get it, understand it, and make it theirs. So it's very key to have examples that go along with that. And then you go through the 5 slides, and what I recommend is after each slide, let's say after the I will, what you do is you turn to your team and say, okay, is everything clear here?
Hmm.
Do you have any questions? Is anything unclear? And maybe your team will have, a clarification question. And sometimes, we write these things on our own. And when you read it after the question of your team member, you go, you know what? Good point. Not clear enough.
Hmm.
And then what I recommend is on the spot to change the wording in your I will to make it super clear so that there's no ambiguity. And then,
Yeah.
you do that I will, I won't, do's, don'ts, and the best way to work with me. And then when your team members, one after another, explain their do's and don'ts, your role as a leader is also to ask many clarification questions so that your team feels that they're being heard, empowered, and that you do actually genuinely care to
Hmm.
understand how they like to work. And once all of that has been done, the best thing is to collect the working style on the one hand and your leadership style on the other, put all of that in one big prezo, make it a PDF document, and boom, you send it to every team member. And so everybody has this book. And what I usually tell the mentees is, guys, you need to tell them you're actually happy that they challenge you if you don't respect your own contract. And
Hmm.
you need to be able to be told, actually, you say you do this, but I'm sorry, you actually don't. And that's how this thing becomes real. And usually it works really well, because also on the other end, when you have a team member that really has a behavior that does not match your leadership style, then you can go to that person and say, what was not clear to you when I said I will not tolerate X, blah blah blah?
Hmm.
And please, enlighten me, what was not clear? And that's really a nice way, because rather than, you know going back to, on this day you did X, Y, or Z, and going into the nitty gritty details, he said, she said, blah blah blah, you're bringing it back one level up by going,
Hmm.
I have set some principles for this team, and there are things, that I said I would do, and things that I won't do. And more importantly, I told you things to do with me and things to never do with me. And right now, what is not clear in this, don't do whatever that might be. And it's very
Hmm.
useful to have, when you have such like performance review, or just quick check-in with a team member that has kind of gone astray, to immediately bring him back where you want him to be, um, because, and thanks to that tool. Now, let me pause here. Very key. You do not need to convince anyone in your team that your leadership style is amazing or great or whatever. He may think whatever you say or wrote is the stupidest thing ever, and that you're a complete moron with your leadership style. And let me get one thing straight. It's absolutely his right and his choice. That person can definitely say your leadership style is crap. That's fine, but
Hmm.
it has consequences,
Yeah.
and there will be consequences to that. And that's fine. And you need to remember, and I love this, life is only about choices and consequences. And once you look at everything like this, things become so easy. See, I love chocolate. It has had
Hmm.
consequences. I'm trying to work
Yeah.
on it, before Christmas, but it has had consequences. It's the same thing. Someone can tell you your leadership style is crap, I don't want to be part of that. Okay, that's entirely your call. It has consequences, and that's probably going to be
Hmm.
very quickly an exit interview question, or at least a tough discussion will ensue.
Yeah. Oh, no, that makes sense. And I think, like you said, giving the concrete examples of exactly what you mean in terms of the principles and bringing it into practice are critical, especially if you're new to a team or if you've taken a step up or if you've come from a private practice and you're coming to in-house. Yeah, I think having clarity over that in your team will just help the smooth running going forward for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, very cool. Nice. And then I suppose just lastly, as a result, if you do all of this, what are the benefits that you'll see?
Well, hopefully, you will see a team fully engaged, a team that knows what is the mountain they're climbing, why they're climbing it, what's going to be the next step, how they're going to contribute to that picture of success. It's a team that will know the rules of the game, but who will always, of working with you in your team, but also will have had a chance to express themselves about how they would like to be treated, because it's, again, very important. It's a two-way stream. And yeah, I kind of want to say again, they will, because there will be such a self-managing team, because they will know exactly where they stand, what they have to do, where they're going, how they fit into that huge organization or whatever organization that you might create. They will probably almost forget that you're the leader of the team, right? That's kind of what I said earlier. They will say, we did it ourselves. And, when you have a team who starts to say things like that, we did it ourselves, then you can be pretty sure that you, as the leader, you can say, well, okay, my job is done here.
Oh, brilliant. I love it. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. As always, you've always got great nuggets to share in terms of
Always
leadership,
happy.
never mind the
Always
law
happy.
as well.
I hope this was useful to our audience. I don't know if we'll have comments or whatever, but I'd love to hear them. In any case, I hope it was useful.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure it definitely will be. It's such an important topic, especially when it's maybe not so much of a focus during the academic lives of lawyers. So yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Stephanie. Until next time.
Yeah, until next time. I'm sure we'll have you back soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. See you later.